a lot of editing. I've just edited my 11th anthology. And I got involved with Edge because they came to me and they said, we do these Tesseracts books, and Tesseracts has always been science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction, that sort of thing. But they reached number 13, and I'm a horror writer, dark fantasy horror, and they said, who better to do this? So basically, I wanted a co-editor, because usually Tesseracts are co-edited, not always, but most of the time. So essentially, I asked David Morrell, and if you don't know who David Morrell is, go check him out on the internet, because he's a big Canadian star, although he lives in the U.S. now, but he's still Canadian, and he is the guy who wrote the book on which Rambo, the film, was based. Although, that was an anti-war book, but, you know, Hollywood, right? So, anyway, so I got involved doing Tesseracts 13, which is this book here. And there's a couple of people here that have stories in Tesseracts 13. Claude has a story. Gemma, you have a story? No, somebody else has a story.
I mentioned in the back.
There's no one here who has a story.
Oh, okay. Nobody here has a story in Tesseracts 13, but I edited it, so my name's on the cover. Okay, so I did this book. And in that book, there were some vampire stories. And because of the way we selected stories and the kind of the way, when you're editing an anthology, you find stories that say, oh my God, I have to have this one. This is fabulous. And when you get a couple of these, it starts to take a shape and a form. And then because of that shape and form, some other stories, which are fabulous in another way, don't fit into how you're forming this book. So that's what happened with these vampire stories. And when I came out of the book, Tesseracts 13, I basically said, I can't let these vampire stories go. I've written a lot of vampire novels and short stories and that, as well as other things, but I felt this was wrong to let these stories just dissipate. And so I went to the editor, or the publisher of Edge, and I said, how would you feel about me editing a vampire anthology called Evolve? And so he was up for that. So I took a story from Gemma, stories from a couple of people. Claude has a story in this book. You do have one in this book, right? Okay. I've had bad week, really bad week, so no brain here. So anyway, he let me edit this anthology, which because I have written a lot on vampires, I've also, over the years, I've collected something like over 2,000 books that are on the vampire. Most of these are fiction, some are nonfiction, as in like film and mythologies and things like that. So I know quite a bit about where the vampire has come from as an archetypal energy, where it is now, and of course now we're into things like True Blood and Twilight and that sort of thing. That's an angle that we're looking at these days. But I wanted to see what else there was in terms of how the vampire is perceived today in literature. And so the book is called Evolve, Vampire Stories of the New Undead, which is right here and for sale in the back. So there it is. This, by the way, is, I don't know if you can see it too well from here. I'll just move it around a little, so maybe. But this is clear type. It's a very arty cover. It's a really nice cover. And this is the Canadian version. I should have brought the other one because this book really... oh, there's the other one right there. You can see the difference. See how red that is? That's the American version. Because they felt the Americans couldn't read this somehow. They wouldn't understand why it was clear writing, you know. So they had to do a second version for the U.S. market. What's curious about this book is how it took off. It really, really took off. And normally what you call a small press in Canada like Edge does not have a book that gets into the U.S. in a big way, and Evolve did. Maybe it's because it's vampire. I like to think it's because my name is on the cover, but for whatever reason, this book made it into the U.S. It's had a lot of very, very, very wonderful reviews. I don't think we've had a bad review. And the Barnes & Noble reviewer, Paul Goat Allen, he said that of the vampire books that were published in 2010, of which, by the way, there were over 1,000, he said that this was one of the top 5, and it is the top anthology of the top 5 books. So that says a lot, and this is like really kudos to Canada and kudos to Edge for doing something different and innovative. So there was this, and after I did this book, I thought about it, and I thought, well, do I want another vampire book? And I thought, yes, I do, because, Mark's laughing at me, because there was more to say. This Evolve basically takes the vampire now, and now being up to, say, 2025, that kind of range. So what we're seeing these days and in the near future, very near future, I wanted to do more. I wanted to take it into the farther future, even into the science fiction realm. So stories that go beyond 2025, 2075, the year 3000, and that is this book, which is coming out in August, Evolve 2. It's like a sequel to a movie. Vampire Stories of the Future Undead. So, and this artist who did the cover of both of these books, they're beautiful covers. His name is John Kane, and he is the partner of Tanith Lee, the writer. Some of you probably know Tanith Lee. He did both of these. The artwork is just amazing. So, that's done, and now I'm going to be doing another anthology, but it's not vampire, and I'll just blurt it out. It's called Dance Macabre, Close Encounters with the Reaper.